Hello, everybody. Today we have a very special guest, a man that needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. His contribution to entertainment in the poker industry is second to none. With one of the most recognizable voices in poker, he's bound to have made you laugh and possibly cry on multiple occasions. We're excited to welcome to the PokerDeals podcast none other than Mr. Joe Stapleton. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great, thank you. As long as I was going to get an introduction, that was pretty good. I like that. I might have to write that down and use that in the future. Just use this one, please. Chris did a good job.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You can pass it on, no problem at all. Well deserved.
Yeah, I'm. Hey, it's been a couple of years here for all of us, but here we are. I'm still here, alive and employed in the PokerStars arena.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a proper arena there. I've seen it on the Twitch backgrounds. It's really cool the way they've done that. So tell us in terms of poker and commentary, like it's a very specific role. How did you even get into this combined role of poker and commentary?
I think like anything else that the job barely existed by the time I came on the scene. There are only a few people in the world doing it. And I say the world because I hear you have an accent, Chris. Back in 2005, when I started on the poker scene as a tournament reporter,
Okay.
As the kind of person you might have, think about the poker news live updates that you read during the World Series of Poker. That was me.
Okay.
I didn't work for Poker News. I worked for a company called Card Player Magazine that had the exclusive live update rights in 2005. And I started off doing that job. That's where I started in the poker world. And there were only a few people doing poker commentary at that time. Although I will admit that as a very ignorant 24-year-old American, I didn't even... It was not even like on my radar, not even something I thought was possible that there might have been poker commentary also happening in England or other countries around the world. I genuinely had no idea there was even television in other countries. So when I eventually made the transition from American television to European television, I genuinely had to be explained by James Hartigan, there's TV other places. And I didn't quite grasp that until I was on it.
Did you at least have a passport?
I did have a passport. Luckily, I had a passport. Okay. My mother is off the boat from France.
Okay.
Is an immigrant, is a first-generation immigrant. So I was at least exposed to I had been to Europe when I was 10 years old. And then one other time when I was doing some weird PR work in the poker world, I went to London once, but then it was just shocking to me. I'm like, there's TV in England too. It's crazy. I thought it was going to be like these little tiny tube TVs. Nope. Turns out it was HD long before we had it here. So I luckily I have the poker world to thank for exposing me to a lot about the world that I probably wouldn't have known otherwise.
So did you go straight from tournaments reporting to commentary? Like, how did you decide, this is the place for me. I want to stay in this.
Well, I never decided never made any decisions in my life. Okay. My life made the decisions for me. I did tournament reporting. And then I went, when the summer was over at the World Series of Poker, I went back to my day job, which was working behind the scenes at a TV show in Los Angeles. And then I kind of jumped back and forth. I went back to the World Series in 2006. It just so happened that the World Series would coincide with a big layoff every year on the TV show I worked for. We would get laid off for 2 or 3 months, and the World Series would happen right in the middle of that.
Perfect.
It wasn't until about 2008 that I had a decision to make where my best friend and my sort of comedy, my writing partner and I had been doing all this poker stuff together, just sort of doing live tournament updates together and we're creating poker content together, except he stayed on and kept doing poker as a full-time job when I went back to LA. And then what happened was he quit. he had started a podcast called The Circuit for Card Player Magazine. His name was Scott Huff, and he started a podcast called The Circuit with Mike Matusow. They eventually ditched Matusow because he was impossible to have as a professional podcast host, and then hired these fellows named Joe Seabach and Gavin Smith. And that show kind of caught fire a little bit, and then Scott quit, and another company decided, hey, we're going to take this same format. Let's just replace Scott. That company was more or less Full Tilt Poker under the guise of PokerWire. And they offered me the job where this is around 2008, where they said, hey, Stapes, if you quit your job in Los Angeles and come work on the poker tour full time, you just basically have to do like one podcast a day from the various tournament stops. And the rest of the time, your time is yours. And the pay they offered me was like it was not quite what I was making working at the TV show, but not that far off. And also, I was in charge of the show, like full on, like it was my show. I was the host, the executive producer. I mean, I was also the intern and the and the whipping boy. I was everything. But that was very appealing to me to have my own voice and to have my own podcast. And that show did quite well also, at least in terms of like poker numbers were concerned. The problem was this thing called the UIGEA happened, and Full Tilt decided they didn't want to pay for, they thought they were going to start losing money because of the UIGEA. So they started closing down some of their like more frivolous operations, which included PokerWire. Turns out PokerStars and Full Tilt went on to make more money than ever after the UIGEA until Black Friday happened. And so I went from doing that show for a company called PokerWire, then a company called Poker Road popped up that Barry Greenstein started, like a pokertainment company that he hired me and again Scott Huff and Joe Seabach and Gavin Smith to all sort of be Amanda Leatherman, who's now married to Daniel, who's now Amanda Negreanu. We're all sort of the little people behind the scenes sort of driving all of that content. And we were like plugging away. And then finally in the midst of that, doing some podcasts and video content for Poker Road, that is when a show called Poker Tonight developed by Ultimate Bet. They were trying to repair their image, and they did a Sports Center style news show, which I was the executive producer / head writer for. And in the midst of that is when PokerStars came up with the big game. And very luckily for me, I was really unhappy working on Poker Tonight. There was my boss there was very difficult, we'll say.
That's the polite way of putting it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a polite way of putting it. I've said it less polite over the years, but I feel like I'm going to run into him again one day. And I don't know if you're like this, but like my grudges definitely dissipate over the years, and I've gone on to do quite well. If you can't tell by this background, I'm fucking
you're in an arena here, huh?
Yeah. So, like, what's the point in holding a grudge?
No.
And the big game came around, and very luckily for me, that I had people on my side like Barry Greenstein, like Daniel Negreanu, like the fellow named John Caldwell, who all had pretty good juice at PokerStars, and got me the job despite the fact that I had no experience on television. But they were adamant that Joe Stapleton was the guy that was going to bring this show to the next level. And I won't say whether or not I am the guy that did that, but I will say that the show was next level. Probably would have been even without me, given the format and the content. But I was very lucky that it didn't matter, that we both got to experience the success of the big game. And after that point, I got pretty lucky. I really haven't had to look for a job since. Mm-hmm.
How long have you been with Stars now, Joe?
I've been with Stars off and on, more on than off since 2009. I've been with Stars officially exclusive to PokerStars since about mid 2020. So we're closing in on 18 months of my marriage to PokerStars. And I will say that things, we've had we've never had like real difficulties. We've had disagreements, right, about like what I think poker commentary should be and what my bosses think poker commentary should be. And it's never been like a huge fight or anything. But now I think we're aligned more than ever about where like my sensibilities have kind of reined in a little bit and their sensibilities have been like, okay, you know what, poker, we are trying to make poker more fun and a little bit more lighthearted. And I feel like we are really basically what I'm trying to say is I barely get in trouble at all anymore over at PokerStars, and I feel like we're in a really good place where and the audience too, right? Like I think everyone's just like kind of in the same place. Like we're all having fun with it. We all get it. We all take things seriously when we need to, and the rest of the time we're like, yeah, this is online poker. Like it's serious for some people, but for the rest of us, like we're here for a good time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very big blend between recreational and professionals, right? That's where you get the mix. It's not. It's the only game I think on the planet where you can sit down next to the pros. You can't do that in football or any other sport, really. So it's
Correct.
Puts everyone on a level playing field. That's the beauty of the game. So you've been in this a long time, Joe. What makes a great commentator in your eyes?
I mean, I can't really say because I'm just going to describe myself. For me, as someone who started off as a poker fan, I have my theory. I have my, sort of what I would want to tune in to see. And so I can't answer what I think makes a great poker commentator. What I will answer is what I try to do, because I am trying to be a great poker commentator. I'm not going to say I am one. I do try. I strive for that. And for me, what my goal has always been if someone tunes in to poker for the first time, I want them to be entertained. You might only have that person for a minute, for 2 minutes, right? You know how Twitch works. You know how you might get someone for a minute or two. I think it's very difficult to hook someone in 30 seconds or a minute of poker for the most part, right? Poker is like a lot of boredom with some insanely intense moments mixed in. So my philosophy has always been, let me grab people's attention. Let me entertain people during those downtimes so that maybe they watch for 1 more minute. Maybe they watch for 2 more minutes. Maybe they watch for 5 more minutes. Oh, this guy's kind of funny. What's this guy all about? What's this guy's goofy? What's his deal? And that's always been my philosophy. Now, that isn't always right. There are certain formats, there are certain broadcasts where it's really only the hardcore people who are watching anyway. And you've already got them. You've already got those people. So that's when I think that what I really love about what we do at the PokerStars broadcast now is there's generally 3 of us on the broadcast, and we've got James, the voice of PokerStars, who is far and away the best poker commentator in the world, especially when it comes to play-by-play, steering your broadcast, getting people amped up for the game. You've got me to fill in the blanks a little bit just with like goofiness and color. And then you've got a pro in the booth who really speaks to if people are just there because they want to hear the hardcore strat, and we give everyone everything they could possibly want. I think that's a pretty good formula that covers all the bases. So that's always been my thing is like, hey, let's just entertain people first. Is it off topic sometimes? Absolutely. But I think that's how you pull people in. The people who are maybe a little bit less interested to hear my dating anecdotes, totally understandable, but we got you anyway. They're not going to tune out from watching like the Scoop main event because I'm being a little silly. But we may get people who continue watching the Scoop main event who are there for the first time because I'm being a little silly.
Exactly. You're focusing on the edge watchers that are potentially going to tune out. So that's
exactly.
Yeah, see, well, it seems like a winning formula. I mean, you guys have been together so long that I mean, I can't even remember you not commentating, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of it before Hardigan, right? There, I had Chris Rose for season 1 of the Big Game, and I had Scott Huff for season 2 of the Big Game, which was interrupted. Literally, we were in the recording studio when Black Friday happened. And then after that, it's been pretty much all Hardigan. I've had Chris Hansen over the years at Poker Night in America, which is fun. But as long as we're talking about hours logged, especially live commentary, I mean, I've probably done 2 or 3 dozen hours without James, and I think we're probably closing in on thousands of hours together. So, I mean, that's really the lion's share of what it is. And luckily, that dynamic works pretty well.
Are you just turning up, or are you putting in work away from the screen time, to make sure that you're achieving what you said in terms of getting those the audience that are on the fence,
For the most part, for the live commentary you see now, I am just turning up.
Okay.
I will say that for many years, there was a considerable amount of work that went in for live commentary. Not considerable, but like, the night before I would study who we're going to be. But the problem is that I don't know who's going to be on the feature table till an hour or two beforehand. Yeah. Online poker, I don't really know who it's going to be. Like sometimes they stop play the night before. Basically, what happened is the coverage has evolved such that the amount of prep I do doesn't really equate to actual to any discernible difference once we go live because of how our coverage has changed. We used to do cards down coverage. For the first 3, 4, I don't know, 5 years I did this, and we had a lot more airtime to fill, and I did a lot more prep work as a result of it because we had games and we had other little bits that we would run. Now we don't really have time for that, especially in the online era. It's just hand, and if I tried to run a bit, we would miss something. So not as much prep now for stuff. However, when we go back to doing TV coverage, we go back to doing hour-long highlight shows, we go back to doing things that are pre-recorded, pre-taped, that's my bread and butter. That's what I love the most. That's where I'm like, great, I know exactly how long I have to talk. I know exactly how long I have to make a joke here. I can squeeze in some color about this player. I can do a little bit of research about where they're from, what they do in their day job. That kind of stuff I really missed a lot. We haven't done any of it, I think, since the PSPC was the last time we made TV shows, quote unquote TV shows out of them. And I believe there's going to be more of that to come in 2022 once live poker is back. So I'm really looking forward to that and looking forward to having some time to just sort of have a little bit more time to take the poker in, right? When there's a huge hand, we've been covering nothing but online poker for the last 18 months. When there's a massive hand, when there's a 4-way all in to end a poker tournament or to even, to get to a final table, by the time I'm even done describing what happened, we're 3 hands away from that. So to just have a little bit of time to unpack and to be able to see people's reactions and see emotions again is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, online poker is just so fast. I mean, we do live commentary as well of some of the PokerStars replays, and the hand is over in a flash. The river's dealt, and it's on to the next few hands, and you're like, okay, the moment is it's just not the same compared to
exactly
live. So I completely agree. But you must have seen so much in your time as a commentator, Joe. Like, what have been some of the best moments for you?
If I could plug PokerStars for a second right now.
Yeah, of course you can. Go for it.
The PokerStars Big 20 is going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's the 20th anniversary of PokerStars, the 20th year of PokerStars. I always get that wrong. Anyway, if you go to the PokerStars blog, there are Big 20 awards that are being decided right now. Like, I think it's 10 or 20 different categories of best moments of PokerStars coverage throughout the years. And I've seen a lot of poker, obviously, as you just mentioned. For me, it all just sort of becomes part of the Matrix, and I don't always remember the standout moments until someone reminds me. So if you guys want to go look at things that I've been reminded of on the PokerStars blog, there's some really fantastic moments. I would like to say that there are certain ones that like are ones that you haven't heard of before, but if I could just rattle off a few that you've probably seen because they kind of went viral. Ronnie Barta being bluffed by Miss Finland on Shark Cage was a really fantastic moment. In that same category, I believe there is a 7-deuce bluff run by a fellow named Georgi. I think it was in Prague. Maybe it was Barcelona, where he just runs a 7-deuce bluff for no reason in a tournament, for like absolutely no reason, but it has like this tremendous reaction to it. There was a 4-way all in at the Canada Cup a couple of years ago. That's on there to end the tournament. Like you would, like just something that you would not actually expect to ever happen. The run it 4 times hand from the big game remains, in my opinion, the best poker clip of all time. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if you know the math of it, but the maths of it. But the run out that happens in that hand is like 1/2 of 1/10 of a percent of the way that this hand runs out. So. And the fact that it involves Phil Hellmuth and a bunch of other superstars at the table, all just losing their minds. Those are some of my favorite moments over the years. Vicky Corin winning, becoming the first 2-time EPT winner, of course, was like super emotional, and I was really, really glad to be there for that. Sebastian Mallets, I don't know if you saw his EPT win in Barcelona, but the kid goes from laughing to crying to laughing again, like all in the span of 10 seconds. And just that sort of rush of emotions that people go through is a really touching and hilarious moment. So, we've seen some things, but if you want to see just like a Joe Stapleton highlight reel, go to the PokerStars blog and you can vote. You can vote because we're going to give away awards to the players involved in those situations. So get your votes in.
That's super fun. What would be some of the like wildest or craziest things you've seen in your time?
Wildest and craziest things. The wild and crazy things obviously are things that happen off the table. And one thing that's kind of sad is that stuff doesn't happen as much as it used to. Everyone's like pretty even tempered now. Like, the people that have stood the test of time for the most part are people that lead their lives in a pretty adult way. And I don't mean like adult like Playboy magazine. I mean adult like they go to bed at 10:30 and they get up and they do yoga and they have like a handful of granola and then they go study their charts and then they come down to the poker tournament. And if they're late, it's because their vegan smoothie was late being delivered and not because they were just getting home at 11:30 in the morning like they used to. So the wild and crazy times, and also my job has evolved. Where when I was first on the tour, I was much younger and much more capable of like having those wild times and coming in and working the next day. But there was way less expected of me back then too. It was like, oh, we're just doing a live stream today, or we're just recording TV links. And it used to be, that I my work days were like 1 to 4 hours long. And now my work days are 8 to 14 hours long. So, I myself also just kind of hit the sack for the most part. So one of the, I've obviously seen a lot of wild things over the years, less and less as the years have gone on, as all of the poker players have really grown up. And if they're late for poker tournaments now, it's because their vegan smoothie was delivered late and not because they're just getting in at 11 o'clock in the morning. But in Barcelona a few years ago, there was we used to have, the money bubble would hit like in level 2 of day 3. And there was a guy who just didn't show up to play on the bubble day, and everyone's sweating his empty chair. Everyone's sweating his stack. And obviously for me, when something like this happens out of the ordinary, like I'm stoked because I'm like, oh, this is great. We just speculate about where this guy is. And I get a note, someone comes in, they're like, actually, please don't do that because, like, you know, if this guy's like dead in his hotel room, then there's like all of this footage of you like goofing on him possibly being dead in his hotel room. So we really want to downplay. So the only joke I really got in beforehand was saying is like, I can only think of a few reasons why I would not show up to play a healthy stack on day 3 of the EPT, and they all involve twins. And so it ends up coming right down to the wire. Like for some reason, someone else is not paying attention. They end up like being like neck and neck. This guy's finally all in, not in his seat. He's all in for like an ante, and he ends up going broke on the bubble. But then there's like 2 other people that somehow get it all in on the same hand, and they end up having. And this was the year that there was a bonus for being the bubble person.
Yeah, that's not a bubble, is it?
No. And so then they had to take it to like a 3-way playoff for a guitar and like a seat to like the Seminole Hard Rock. It was like a Seminole Hard Rock cross promotion. And then, you know, the not there person was not involved in that, but then like 3 other people somehow end up all going broke in this hand. And then we get word the next day about the guy that ended up being the stone bubble, the guy who went broke, not being there. And it turns out my joke was very close to the reason why he didn't show up, like insanely close. Like he was out on a yacht, like in the he was like, I'm cool, dude. I'm having a good time. I'm fine. Like, don't give a fuck about the poker tournament. So the moral of the story is, I think I'm a wizard. Like my jokes come true.
You're also a comedian. Tell us a bit more about that. Like, is that something you're pursuing, or like professionally, or is it just a hobby, or like how do you see it?
Well, I don't know how to answer that because I don't know what makes, you know, when you're talking about what makes someone a professional poker player, it's the moment that they have no other jobs and they pay all their bills through poker. And technically I pay all my bills through comedy, but not through stand-up comedy. You know, it's my comedic sensibilities that have paid my bills over these years. So I've never really known how to classify that. What's strange is that I always called myself a comedian. I've been a funny person. And people be like, oh, you do stand-up. And I'd be like, actually, not really. I did stand-up for the first time once in like 2003 or 4. I did it a few more times, like in 2012, 2013, like maybe a dozen times. I'm talking like open mics. And then finally, when I moved to London in 2013 to work on the EPT, I had a very easy schedule. I was working like 1 or 2 days a week. And I was like, all right, asshole, you have no excuse. You're going to become a stand-up comedian now. You're going to go out there. You're going to do it. You're going to put the time in. You're going to put the work in. I do get some enjoyment out of it while it's happening. And so that's kind of where I'm at with stand-up, where I really enjoy it when I'm doing it. All of the stuff that happens leading up to it is a fucking pain in the ass. It is a lot of hard work. It's hard work getting the people to come to shows. It's hard work organizing them. It's hard, but the reward of it, not financial, of just the fun I have doing it and the attention that it gets me. I'm not going to lie. I like that attention. I like getting off stage and getting patted on the back and having people go, oh man, I could never do that. Holy shit. How do you do that? Oh, wow. You're actually pretty good. Those sorts of things. I live for that. And as long as I can, not kill myself, because, you know, my day job can be somewhat demanding, and then burning the candle at both ends. It's kind of thankless, right? Like after I get done doing like an 8-hour commentary day, do I really want to like go out and then like do 5 minutes at an open mic to prepare for a 5-minute set later in the week? Not always. But luckily I'm still at the point right now where I'm enjoying it enough, and I'm not terrible at it. Luckily, I'm not terrible at it. So that works out well.
And what do you do to prepare? Like, how do you make a set for the comedy? I mean,
Well, I mean, it starts with a premise, right? It starts with a premise of, for example, like I'll take you through one new thing that I've written like post pandemic is
let's
that
do it.
like I found it really obnoxious that look, I'm a vaccine guy and I'm a science guy and all the things you'd expect a liberal woke cuck from California to be. But I found it kind of obnoxious when everyone was comparing vaccine brands.
Okay.
I was like, look, it's kind of obnoxious. Like, it's not none of your business. Like, which brand of I don't need your approval over which brand of life-saving miracle vaccine I took. And so that's my premise, right? It's my premise is that like it's obnoxious talking about that. And then my punchline is so now when someone asks me what vaccine brand I got, I'm annoyed. And this is a terrible choice of bit to choose for you because I don't even think you're gonna get the reference, but
I'll laugh anyway, don't worry.
Someone says to me, what vaccine brand? I tell them I got Kirkland signature brand vaccine, and Kirkland is like the generic brand at Costco here. So everything that you buy in Costco in like massive quantities, it's like Kirkland vodka, Kirkland fruit snacks, Kirkland orange juice. So I got Kirkland. It's the same as AstraZeneca. I just had to buy 200 doses of it. So that joke is something that like I had a Zoom comedy class and I pitched that joke and then kind of got a bit of a chuckle and I'm like, okay, there's something to this. And then I went to an open mic and I told a version of that joke and I was like, okay, there's something to this. And I went to 5 or 6 more open mics until I thought it was ready to do on a real show. And then that's part of my act now.
Nice.
That's sort of the evolution of it. That one came relatively easily. There are other jokes or premises that don't come as easily or that don't make it.
Yeah.
You know, that I try to make work over and over and over again and don't really make it. For example, there's where do you live, Chris? Are you a Malta guy or
I live
England?
in Malta.
Live in Malta. Maybe they have this in Malta. I don't know. I think they do this at Boots in the UK. When you buy your products, right? Like a bunch of receipts churn out based on the things that you bought, right? You know, based on like what they want you to buy next time. In America, we have a drugstore that does this, but the receipts are like, I mean, just comically long. And there's a lot of comedians that do bits about that already. And my bit isn't about that. My bit is about how I use my parents' number when I'm checking out, like their rewards card number. So so I get their coupons and they get my coupons, you know, based on what I've bought when they use a thing pop out. And I always thought it'd be really funny if when my parents went to the drugstore, they used their number, but based on the products I've been buying, they get like a bunch of coupons for condoms.
Yep.
And then my dad is like, hey, why am I getting all these coupons for condoms and Plan B pills? And then rather than admit to it being me, I just convince him that my 75-year-old mother is cheating on it.
Okay.
And that's a joke that I've tried it so many times. It never works. It hasn't. I did it once when my parents were in the crowd. It went terribly. Like I bombed super hard. And so that's a joke that not like joke, but it's like a premise that I still want to try to make work. And so every once in a while at an open mic, I'll try to make it work. And it's actually getting there. Like the version you just heard of it is like slightly better than the way I used to tell it, but it's a very slow process and one in which, like, imagine if like you're cooking. I mean, it's kind of like cooking, but it's kind of like 90% of the time you burn it. And it's like inedible. And so eventually, and you're like, how many more times am I going to try this before I realize this recipe just doesn't work?
Exactly.
Or one time you do it and you're like, oh, wait, I think I see like what this potentially could be, but I have to keep changing it and tweaking it over time. And you never know, like in its best state still might not be worth it. right? It might be this is as good as it's ever going to get. So that's sort of what goes into to comedy a lot of the time. Except instead of like just washing out the pan and trying again, you got to fucking get in your car, drive to an open mic, sit there for an hour, think about your jokes, and then you get 5 minutes to try it again. And then if it doesn't work that time, then you got to do the same thing all over again the next night.
You're basically like a scientist. I mean, you're just testing and experimenting with everything you're doing, except you're like literally getting burnt every time you do it.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah. And the variables are just as numerous a lot of the time. The intonation, word choice, word order, what you wear, your lead in, how much background you give on the thing. It's all, all these little variables and tweaks that you really have no idea what the end result is going to be. The butterfly effect of just changing one word, can really affect the entire joke. How dirty do we get on this podcast?
Well, if
okay,
it's bad, yeah, go for it.
So no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Not with this background. Anyway, it's not even. It's not even like edgy. It's just like a very dirty joke about sex. Okay. That really, it's a super edgy joke, and I was using like just a little bit too harsh of language in the joke, and I eventually softened the language in the joke. It's still about the gross thing I'm talking about, but the softening of the language now makes it palatable for everybody. And that joke's one of my tent poles in my act, like one of my big, like this one never misses kind of things.
Now you have to tell it.
The first bunch of times I did the joke, people groaned. And people like booed because I just use a really dirty word. Nope, that's it. That's all we're going to talk about that one.
But I mean, you must have a lot of emotional strength there, Joe. Like, I mean, I cannot see that being easy. Most people are not going to be able to throw themselves on stage, tell jokes that they get burnt with, and come back again and again and try to make them work. I mean, it just sounds absolutely brutal.
It can be brutal, but like most things in life, like I didn't realize the edge I had, the advantages I had going into it. And for example, like already having been on television, you do get to bring a certain confidence to the stage that other people had to earn, at least in stand-up. It took them a lot longer and a lot more effort to earn it. And especially that when I really dove into stand-up, I was in London, and I would recommend to any American, if you can, go to London for your start in stand-up comedy, because they appreciate the arts still in London, as opposed to Los Angeles, where nobody gives a fuck. They're all so annoyed that they have to listen to your comedy. 2, people in London appreciate free entertainment still.
We're just polite, Joe. That's what it is.
Sure, whatever it is. I mean, politeness does have a lot to do with it, but like you'll be walking down the street in London and be like, well, with your mates or with your girlfriend, it'll be like, oh, free comedy tonight. Let's check it out. Whereas in Los Angeles, you go, ooh, there's free comedy here. Where else can we go? Like this, like nobody wants to see free comedy. And then as a person that was already on television on Channel 4 in London, I got opportunities from people being like, aren't you the Channel 4 guy? No. You don't have to do this gig. I've got a better gig for you. Now, granted, it wasn't the Comedy Store. It wasn't the Apollo, but it was, not the bottom rung anymore. And then finally, as an American, I got to just go on stage and go, boy, the tube sure is weird, isn't it? And I would get a laugh. Like I would get laughs that I didn't deserve. And so all of these things sort of built my confidence up. Stand-up's one of those things that like, if you could do your like 5th ever gig at the Apollo, you would probably crush. You would probably crush. But the problem is the gigs you're doing are fucking hard. The gigs get easier as you get better. It's not like anything else in the world like that, where like the better you are at something, the opportunities you're given are less challenging. So because I got to be like I got to basically skip like the absolute worst parts of
Yeah.
stand-up comedy, right? Like I probably got to skip like the first 18 months, basically,
That's a good head
because
start.
of all the advantages I have. And that's when most people quit.
Yeah.
So I got really, really lucky in that respect.
Wow, it's super interesting. When do you next perform?
I have a show tomorrow, actually, here in Los Angeles. And yeah, I mean, it's not in Los Angeles, it's in Glendale, which is, it's like, I don't know. It's basically LA, but all these shows, this is you're expected to, at my level, to not to bring people. Bringers are like a slightly different thing, but to like, just to
Promote.
have some fans show up, have some people show up, and that part's pretty stressful too. Of just like constantly shilling, constantly like, I got a show. Who wants to come to my show? Wants to my show? And like, luckily, I have really great friends that I can bring a couple out for everything I do. And again, because I'm not terrible at it, right? Like they know that when they go, they're at least going to enjoy my performance. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is if anyone's going to be in Glendale, California tomorrow, which by the way,
go for it. Tell them where. Tell them
the
when they can
podcast
get
probably
tickets.
comes out tomorrow at best. So after that, I do have a show in New York City. I've got 2 more shows in LA the first week of December. November 29th, I'm at the Ha Ha Cafe in North Hollywood. And then on the 2nd of December, I'm also in North Hollywood. But on the 18th of December, 1 month from today, hold on, let me make sure that's correct.
Yeah, it's the 18th.
The 18th of December, I'm at the West Side Comedy Club in New York City, which is a pretty prestigious place to be on one of their new talent shows. So if anyone happens to be in New York, wants to come to that, we'll roll out the red carpet for you.
Nice, guys, check it out. I mean, as you can see, he's clearly a funny dude. So if I was in the vicinity, I would surely come and watch. Okay, Joe. So what we'll do now is we'll do a quick, rapid fire fun question round, if that's okay.
Okay. All right.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Favorite poker player?
My favorite poker player is Phil Locke. He is. Do you want an explanation or just the name?
If you have a good explanation, you can throw it in.
I mean, he's just the most entertaining poker player I've ever seen. He's amazing. He's incredible. He's on a different plane of existence than the rest of us, and I'm just so grateful whenever I get to see him on camera.
Nice. Do you prefer live or online?
Let's just say, as an American, I prefer live poker because it's the only kind of poker that's available to me at the moment. How's that?
Fair enough. What's your favorite event and why?
Ooh. My favorite event's Prague, EPT Prague. It's at the end of the year. So everyone's like in a really good mood. Everyone is looking forward to the next year. Everyone is looking forward to Christmas time, and Christmas season, winter in Prague is lovely. It's just delightful. There's beer and meat and pastries and the Christmas market. And it's just, it's perfectly acceptable to like drink hot booze as you walk down the street. It's like the perfect storm of things for me.
I agree. I really, really love that stuff as well. What do you love most about poker?
What I love most about poker is something you touched on earlier, in that it is a level playing field for, obviously not for skill, obviously not for bankroll, obviously not for buy-ins, but for that brief moment when you're at the poker table, there's no status. There's no status at the poker table. Right before they yell shuffle up and deal, when everyone has the same amount of chips, when everyone has equal chance to win. I'm at the same table with a Hollywood actor and a lawyer and a police officer and a ditch digger and a pipe fitter and a lorry driver. And we're all exactly the same in that moment. And I find that for social reasons, you can become friends with people that you never would have imagined you would ever be friends with, people that you would never imagine you would meet. And you get access to them in a way where generally their guard is down. Like, when would I ever get a chance to talk to like a top defense attorney, in the world, happens to be sitting to my right, and at the poker table, people are generally like pretty disarmed and pretty open, and like don't assume you're chatting with them because you want something for them or need something from them, and you can actually really have interesting, fun, good conversations with people. And there's that old joke that people reuse. I'm not going to claim it was one of mine, but I was one of the first before it got buried. Is to say, the real first place prize is the friendships you make along the way, and the real first place prize is the money, Chris. It's the money. But for those of us who don't ever have a shot at winning the money, those relationships and friendships are really what keeps me playing the game.
That is an awesome answer. Okay, what's the best thing about being a commentator?
The best thing about being a commentator is, you get to travel all over the world, and you don't have to pay for any of it. And if you're like Hardigan, he's figured out how to pay for nothing on those trips. Like me, I still spend like a bunch of extra money, like on extra food and meals and stuff. Hardigan, he's got it down to a science. Like he even brings water from like the production area up to his hotel room, so he doesn't have to buy his own bottle of water. Like he really does it right.
Really crushing it. What's the worst thing about being a commentator?
The worst thing about being a commentator is having to please everyone. Is that no one, 100% of people aren't going to be happy no matter what. So either the hardcore poker strat people are going to be left a little bit wanting for the things I have to say, or my bosses are going to be left a little bit wanting for me not taking things seriously enough all the time, or a player occasionally may take issue with something off the cuff or flippant that I have said, which, by the way, that happens very infrequently. But my point is that it's really difficult to avoid criticism.
Yeah.
That's really the toughest part. And I will say this: I've gotten off pretty easy over the years as far as criticism is concerned. I really haven't gotten much of it at all, which is lucky because I have very thin skin.
Yeah, I mean, they say if you don't want criticism, just lock yourself away, right? Just don't do anything.
Say nothing, do nothing,
Yeah,
be
exactly.
nothing.
Exactly. If poker disappeared tomorrow, what would you do?
I think I would become a starving artist, stand-up comedian / actor. I take little acting auditions on the side when I can. Yeah, I was in a Pepsi commercial back in 2020, and I'm not terribly successful at these auditions, but I think part of it is that I'm limited as to when I can audition and what parts I'm available for, because so much of my time is already taken up by poker. But if poker went away tomorrow, I think I'd have no choice. I'd sell my house and my car and like really just do the starving artist thing, the LA actor thing. And I think maybe given my experience and with a little bit of hunger, I would maybe have a shot at making a living. We'll call it. We'll see.
Fantastic. All right. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, it's rotating between a few, but I usually say Swingers, The Sting, and Out of Sight.
Okay,
Out of Sight are like my top 3. But I mean, you can't see, but behind this PokerStars background, to peel back the curtain, it's not really an arena. I got about 700 DVDs. I used to be really into collecting movies and DVDs back when I thought that was going to be, not something that you could just have in the air. Now all my movies are in the air. They're just in the cloud. And I don't need to take up. Every time I move, it's like boxes and boxes of DVDs. And my friends are like, "Why the fuck do you still have these?" So I'm a huge movie fan.
Nice. Favorite place in the world?
My favorite place in the world, this is a boring answer, but my house. I was very lucky to be able to buy a home in 2020. I went from never thinking I would ever have a home, own a home, to having one like within 6 months. And every time my girlfriend and I leave the house for any reason, we get home and we go, never again. We're never leaving the house ever again.
What's
we
COVID
just
done
have
to you?
we had a really, we went from like living in an apartment in Hollywood to moving a little bit further out to the suburbs where I have a backyard. And during COVID, people were able to come and spend time in the yard. And it just became our little clubhouse refuge during, a very difficult year for everybody. And I just absolutely love it here and never feel the need to go anywhere else.
Well, congratulations on the
Thank
place
you.
then. Okay, proudest life moment.
The day we got in the house, obviously, we just went there. That was pretty proud. The day that I got verified on Twitter was a stupidly proud moment. Like, I'm embarrassed how proud I was in that moment to be verified on Twitter. Especially because I was out with like a couple of girls, like a couple of models,
Okay.
not the kind you're thinking of, but like alt models, like tattoo, like goth girl models. And
Okay.
one of them was like, "You just got verified on Twitter. I'm gonna have sex with you." Like, literally took me home with her to celebrate getting verified on Twitter.
If she hadn't
And
said that, would you have felt the same way?
yes, no, I
Yeah,
was
okay, so
overjoyed.
that was
I
just
was
a
like, "Look, I
bonus.
feel really." She was like, "What's going on? You seem really." I was like, "I'm overjoyed. I got verified on Twitter. Like, I feel dumb about how proud I am of this." And she was like, "No, I get it. In fact, like, you're coming home with me." So that was just a cherry on top.
Was it like a hard process? Were you waiting a long time, or was it just one
It
of
was a
those,
hard
like...
process, and also like Hardigan got verified before me. Like, he applied as a joke
Okay.
because he like didn't care, and then he got verified before me, and so I was like genuinely pretty
Was it
pretty
rubbing it
perturbed
in?
about that. And also, like, it happened like right as they started verifying like anybody.
Mhm.
So it wasn't as exclusive a club by the time I got there, but we didn't know that at the time. I was at the very beginning of like the floodgates. So that was pretty proud. I had a write up in Bluff Magazine like years ago where it's like Joe Stapleton, poker's funny guy. That was pretty proud for me. I won in 2016. I was, I'm looking at the award now, the GPI Media Person of the Year. That was a pretty proud moment for me. And my first year on the big game, I won a Bluff Viewers Choice Award for Best TV Personality. I beat like, Ali and Lon and Norm. And so all those moments of being recognized, I've been pretty proud of all of them.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Joe. I would like to say on behalf of the poker community, I'm sure we're all very grateful for your contribution to our entertainment. It's been a super fun journey over the years. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for your time. This was super fun, especially with all the comedy, to see how it sounds so brutal and putting yourself out there and doing that. But thank you so much for your time. And this was really fun.
You're welcome. And if I ever make it back to Malta, I'll see if someone will let me have a microphone for the night, and you and Nicole and hopefully Sushant can all come out. And
we'll get a crowd. Don't worry.
All right, cool. Right, exactly. I need people. I need
exactly.
bodies.
We'll bring them for you. Don't worry. Thanks, Joe. Take care.